Welcome to this podcast on Lynne Ramsay's 2002 feature film Movern Callar. We will be discussing the key messages and motives within the film and how aspects of mise-en-scène are used to create this intimate world where we follow the journey of one particular unusual girl. So starting with the basics, what is Movern Callar actually about?
The film follows the journey of an impoverished supermarket employee, Movern Callar, living in a secluded part of West Scotland. Morven wakes up one morning to find that her boyfriend, a writer, has committed suicide and left his affairs and unpublished novel to her charge. We follow the ins and outs of her daily life as she continues her normal routine, despite the rotting corpse in the centre of her living room. Eventually, she chops the body up and buries it, and then sells the novel under her own name, and using the money, takes her best friend Lana to Spain. The holiday takes the two girls on an unexpectedly emotional journey. Movern Callar follows an abstract narrative focusing on intimate emotions and the random and often inconsequential ways of life. There is limited cause and effect, and instead we simply observe the progression of a character.
Thematically wise, the film focuses on the collision of the normal and the abnormal, as Morven works at a normal job and lives in a normal, modest apartment, and yet Morven herself is abnormal through her warped response to the suicide. There is also a focus on placing the normal in the abnormal, particularly considering wealth. Both Morven and Lana are not well off, and yet Morven's financial gains from her boyfriend's death lands the two in Spain, experiencing an unusual freedom from their usual working-class lives and introducing the theme of escapism, particularly as Morven avoids grieving. The use of gender within the film also suggests female empowerment as a key theme. Men are represented as both the victim, as Morven's boyfriend dies, and as a minimal part of the action, simply fulfilling the role of satisfaction as is demonstrated in Spain when both the girls find a hookup. This inverts the typical female role of victim and object of satisfaction, thus enforcing a feminist lead to the film. Other more obvious themes centre on the powerful friendship of the two girls. Lana seems to be Morven's sole connection to a social grounded life, and it is because of Lana that Morven even clears up the body. So when the film ends and the girls are no longer close, there is a certain ambiguity as to how Morven will cope.
Lynne Ramsay does highlight many reasons why she was so intrigued by Alan Warner's novel, primarily being her fascination with the extraordinary character of Morven, having a real edge of an outsider kind of character, as she said in an interview with Adam Hart at the 2002 Cannes Film Festival. Ramsay admires Morven in being an ordinary girl who does something quite extraordinary, and she saw the book as a representation of the disenfranchised youth, drawn to the scene of the partygoers and clubbers who are nonetheless alone in a crowded room. Inspired by the novel, Ramsay took it to director and friend Liana Dognini, and the two began to co-write Ramsay's first film adaptation of a novel.
Morven is characterised in a slightly abnormal sense in that we understand her not through dialogue but through emotions. Long, lingering shots on her face evoke us to want to know what she's thinking, and Samantha Morton, the actress, able to convey an enormity of emotions with limited facial change. Morton holds back on leading us to certain thoughts, and we are left intrigued and willing to follow the story, if only to understand more about Morven. The initial opening of the film reverses the classical ending death, as the shot opens with Morven cuddled up to the body of her dead boyfriend. This is critical in characterization, as she defies the normal expected response to the death of a loved one.
Samantha Morton was part of a very large and very impoverished family, and at the age of 8 was taken as a ward of the court after her parents could no longer afford to take care of her. When it was revealed that her father was an abusive alcoholic and her mother was in the middle of a heavy domestic abuse with her second husband, it was ruled that Morton could never return to her parents. For 9 years she lived in and out of foster care homes, frequently traumatised and turning to silent protests. At the age of 13, Morton was involved in the notorious Rotherham child sexual exploitation scandal where over 1,400 children, primarily in care, were abused in an organised act.
Did I give someone permission to touch me? Did I give someone permission to do that to me? No, I didn't. And also, I'm a child, so I don't understand what is happening to me until I'm an adult and I reflect.
Understandably, Morton developed anger issues, and in her early teen years, under the effects of drugs, she violently confronted a bully who had been taunting her for years. After serving 18 weeks in a attendance centre, Morton finally decided to turn her life around, but of course this has had a lasting effect on her, which has arguably enhanced her ability to identify with characters in extreme situations and portray emotions so vulnerably and honestly. As Morven, Samantha's silence and inward emotions can be traced back to the months she spent in silence, and her lack of reaction to death similarly relates to her detached emotional state as a child. As is outlined by the Swiss psychiatrist Elisabeth Kübler-Ross in her 1969 book, people in mourning are said to go through 5 stages in order: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Although Morven's grieving appears unusual through lack of emotion, this can be attributed to Kübler-Ross's model, and in fact the film in its entirety could be seen to chronicle the journey of these 5 stages. The initial denial is evident as Morven strokes the body as if expecting a reciprocating action. She then persists to ignore the fact that there is a corpse in the middle of her room and continues to live around it. The transition to anger is much more subtle considering her quiet nature, but Morven loses patience with simply ignoring the body and covers it up. This may seem like denial, but denial is more of an initial reaction, and anger replaces denial when the griever realises denial is no longer an option, so by covering the body, Morven indicates that she has reached the end of her tether. Bargaining manifests itself as an act that attempts to, consciously or subconsciously, re-establish the deceased. Morven, propelled by a new sense of energy, as the 5 stages model outlines, chops up the body and buries it. In this scene, she takes time to admire the nature and dance in the wilderness, implying a false sense of renewal and happiness. This renewed state for Morven continues as she travels to Spain with Lana. Depression only comes when Morven realises that the luxurious scene in Spain is not actually curing her grief, and forces a disgruntled Lana to travel to the countryside with her. Through realising that she's still unsettled, Morven grows upset on a profound level. The final acceptance is subtle, but comes at the very end of the movie, when Morven, now with $100,000 after selling her boyfriend's novel under her own name, locks her house and puts the keys through the front door, signifying that she will never return. This appears as denial aside from the fact that she takes the music her boyfriend saved for her, and this single act suggests that she is ready to face a life without him, but in memory of him.